Hi. So this video is going to be a continuation of the previous video that I made. It's part of a series on how to become ourselves. And in the previous video, we discussed why it's worth it to become ourselves, and then we went into the first principle. I proposed a series of 4 principles for becoming ourselves. And the first one was radical honesty towards oneself. Now, the remaining 3 principles are orienting ourselves towards peace, taking care of ourselves as if we're someone responsible for caring, and the fact that we have everything that we need in ourselves. And today we're going to focus on the second principle, right? Orienting towards peace. And I want to discuss this with you. Let's start with this idea, right? When we have conflicts with others, whether they be between countries or between two people like you and I, like if we have a conflict, oftentimes we see some negative things in the other, right? He's stupid, he's evil, he's incompetent, he's manipulative, whatever, right? We have these undesirable traits that we see in the other, and that makes it easy for us to despise them, right? Because look at all these negative things about this person that I dislike. So what can I do? Fight, right? I can push him aside, I can make him go away, and I don't have any of these problems that this guy has, because they're on him, not on me. But oftentimes, and this is something that Carl Jung talks about, and it's the fact that whatever we find upsetting in the other is actually something that is to be found in ourselves. What bothers us the most about others are things that we find in ourselves, and that's not something very comfortable to sit with, right? What do you mean I have to what do you mean there's stupidity in myself, or malevolence, or a propensity to manipulate? What do you mean? That's him, not me. But the thing is, it's him and me. And that's the thing, right? We each of us have a shadow. That's a technical term from Carl Jung, and it's something that refers to the fact that each of us, each person, no matter who we are, has a dark side, has a series of vices, for example, of traits that are despicable, maybe, and hard to look at and not at all comfortable to admit to, that we carry with us. And actually, if we think about the things that play out in the world, wars and deceit and manipulation, all that, each of us, and that's the scary thing, each of us is capable of these things. Now, we've grown sort of accustomed to denying these things in ourselves, and that's not really a fault of modern society or anything like that. It's something that we do, most of us, right? No matter the time in history that we're at. And orienting towards peace, this idea comes from an article by Jordan Peterson. It's called Peacemaking Among Higher Order Primates. I highly recommend reading it. It's available on Google Scholar for free. This idea of making peace among primates like us, right, is a little bit more nuanced than just let's sit down, let's shake hands and be on our way. Sometimes peace means fighting for something higher than ourselves. Right? One thing that we can make peace over is truth. And the thing is, each of us carries a part of the truth, and we can reach it together. And I say each of us carries a part of the truth, remembering what we discussed in the last video, which brought up the topic of the self being the image of God in man, right? And the image of God being a spark of the divine, right? Each of us carries that spark of the truth of the divine in us, and when we bring each other, when we come together, right? That's when we manifest a little bit more of that truth that's in each of us. And in order to make peace, sometimes you have to have difficult conversations, difficult negotiations, and you have to ask difficult questions. So, um, one thing that has to happen so that we can sit down and make peace with ourselves is to learn to give up our pretenses. Let's take a more concrete example of how that would look like. Let's say I have in my shadow, I have an aspect of myself that is stupid, right? I find it stupid. Maybe let's say, since this is sort of close to me because we've just had elections and they got canceled and whatever. We had elections. Let's say part of me feels stupid because I'm not very well informed about the presidential candidates, right? That can be something that some of us are confronted with. So one thing that has to happen for us to make peace with that stupidity, and yes, we have to make peace with stupidity. That doesn't mean we have to give in, right? And just lay back and say, well, I'm stupid, I guess I'll just live with it, guess I'll die, as the meme goes. No. That's not what we're talking about. What I mean by peace is seeking something higher order value, like truth, which allows for even stupidity, even our stupidity, to participate. So we can move together, us and our stupidity, towards truth. And for that to happen, we have to give up the pretense that we're not stupid. We are stupid, okay? That's it. That's the starting point, and that's okay. Because it doesn't mean that we have to stay that way. It doesn't mean that we can't transform ourselves so that we become a little bit closer, we move a little bit closer to the truth. And the first step is giving up that pretense of not being stupid, let's say. And then once we do that, we can sit down at the table with our stupidity, with that aspect of our shadow, and we can start talking. And how do we talk? Well, one thing that I've learned to do over the years is to ask a question, a hard question. And to ask that hard question, sometimes it helps to become a little bit more clear-minded. And to do that, I use a breathing exercise. There's a lot of breathing exercises out there. There's meditation and so on and so forth. One that I like personally, this is borrowed from Andrew Huberman, and it was taught to us in my master's in clinical psychology. It was in Romanian we call it 80-20 breathing. It might have a different name in English, but I'll showcase it. You can look it up. Physiological sigh, that's what it's called. So, how do you do the physiological sigh? Well, let's say when you breathe in, you fill in your lungs 100%. What you do in physiological sigh, in 80-20 breathing, is you breathe in and fill in your lungs about 80% of the way, sit there for a little bit, and then breathe in the remaining 20%. Or if it sounds weird to like count percentages, just try to count to 5 while you're breathing in, right? You do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm full. And so you have a good idea of how long it takes you to reach 5 and breathe in. What you do then is you count to 4, right? So you almost fill up your lungs, wait a little bit, then breathe in the last one. So how does that look like concretely? Let me showcase. So you do this. right? Notice you have to breathe out slowly, a little bit slower than you breathe in. And you do this a couple of minutes. Now I exaggerated the movements. You saw me tense up a little bit. That was so it would be a little bit easier for you to do. Obviously, you don't tense up when trying to relax. So you do this, you do the breathing, and then you go in and you do this in the morning after you wake up, just before you start your day. Maybe you wash your face and then you sit down at the edge of your bed and you do the breathing, and then you ask a question. And the question that you ask, let's say that your problem is that you feel stupid about, let's say, presidential candidates or whatever. What you'd ask is, what can I do and I am willing to do, right? Notice, what can I do and I am willing to do today to become more informed? Or some variant of that question. You can ask the question however way you want, but the important aspects are, what am I willing to do, what can I do, and what am I willing to do? It has to be both. Because sometimes what we do is we set these very high standards, right? Let's say if we're keeping this example in mind of stupidity and becoming informed, maybe we have this pretense of, well, I want to read 20 articles today about whatever topic, presidential candidates. Okay, I could do that maybe, but am I willing to do that? Well, not really. I want to watch some TV. I want to go outside. I want to, I don't know, do whatever else. Okay, well, I'm not really willing to do 20 articles today. And this is when you start using something that Peterson recommends, which is negotiation. You negotiate with yourself to make peace. Okay, not 20 articles today. Am I willing, can I, and am I willing to read 10 articles? Not really. 5 articles? No. 2 articles? No. Am I willing, can I, and am I willing to read 1 article today to become more informed? Well, no. we can still say no, right? Okay, we lower the threshold even more. Am I willing to read 1 paragraph of an article today to become more informed? Can I do this, and am I willing to do this? Yes. Okay, and you do that. You negotiate with yourself from a task that I am not willing to do, even though I would like to do that, I am not willing to do that, or maybe I even can't, right? I negotiate downwards. 10, 5, 2, 1. 1 paragraph. And that's not very flattering, right? Let's not kid ourselves. It's not very flattering to read 1 paragraph a day to become more informed. But it sure as hell beats 0 paragraphs per day. And it adds up actually in time. If you read 1, even if you stick to 1 paragraph a day to become more informed, that's 1 paragraph today, 1 paragraph tomorrow, 1 the day after that, and so on and so forth. In a month, that's 30 or 31 paragraphs. In a year, that's about 370 paragraphs. That's a book, or maybe multiple books, right, read in a year, compared to nothing. Okay, that's a better way to peace than this alternative, which is actually something that we do a lot, which is to fight. We fight with ourselves, or with our stupidity, for example. Say, well, how could I do this? How could I say that stupid thing, you dumb mother something, right? How could you say that? It was so dumb. You said it yesterday, and you said something like that in the past, and you're going to say it again today. You are, and so on and so forth, right? We have this sort of internal dialogue with the aspects of ourselves that we do not like very much. And there's a principle that we have in Krav Maga. This is the Israeli martial art for self-defense. Um, there's a principle that Yaron, our grandmaster, taught us a few years ago during an exam. He said this: in Krav Maga, we do not fight the enemy. And many students back then went, "What do you mean we don't fight? Like, why am I learning to use my fists and to kick and to punch and to do all that? What's the point of it all if I'm not fighting?" Well, he went on then to say, we do not fight because when you fight, there's a 50% chance to win and there's a 50% chance to lose, right? Because either you win or the enemy wins. So we do not fight, we win. And winning is not necessarily to do with the other, right? To take him out, although that's, of course, an important part. But winning is oftentimes a little bit more subtle, let's say, than that. In some cases, in some ways, it doesn't even matter whether there's an enemy physically there or not, because winning, and there's a book actually that I recommend. This book is called, I have it in Romanian, but you'll find it in English as well. It's called Hagakure, right? It's written by Yamamoto Tsunemoto. And this book, it talks a lot about samurai principles for living life. And there's one samurai that stuck with me that is apropos to our discussion. He said this: I don't know how to defeat anyone. I only know how to defeat myself. And this is actually something that comes up a lot in martial arts philosophy, which is this idea that the real battle, the real conflict is not with the other who is threatening our life, our loved ones' lives. The real conflict is with ourselves. Because in order for me to neutralize the other, right, I have to remember my training, right, to remember the way I was taught to move my body. Like if a punch is coming towards my face, to remember how to move my hand and to make the punch and to hit the proper spot on the enemy, and so on and so forth. And in many ways, I have to get out of my own way for me to do that. And in that regard, it doesn't really matter whether the enemy is really there or is just a straw man or what have you. What matters is doing what I need to do in order to achieve victory. And of course, I'm not really trying to get into an extreme here over achieving victory or anything like that. What I'm getting at is this idea of not fighting with ourselves anymore, right? We want to win, and we aim to win, not to fight, to win. And winning, in the case of becoming ourselves, means, like I said, to propose, to find a higher order principle, like seeking truth, that we can go towards with all of ourselves, even with our stupidity and incompetence or even ill intent, right? To figure out a way to navigate towards truth with all of ourselves. And the cat decided to show up. She's gonna sit on me for a while. So yeah, that's one thing that we need in order to orient towards peace, right? So we talked about a bunch of things, giving up our pretenses, right, to be other than we are, to set up a principle, to find a principle that we can move towards with all of ourselves, even with those aspects of ourselves that aren't really desirable for us, to learn to negotiate with ourselves by asking that question of what can I and am I willing to do today to do whatever you want to do to seek truth, let's say, right? And maybe to relax a little bit while asking that, because it can be, the answers can sometimes be quite difficult, and I may have mentioned this in another video, right? When we ask ourselves open-ended questions like that, the answer isn't necessarily what we want to hear, right? Maybe the answer that I wanted to hear to that question of how to what am I willing and can I do today to uh, become more informed? I would have liked to read 20 articles, but okay, maybe I can't, or maybe I'm not willing to do that. Okay, I find the answer that I can live with, right? That's good. That's good enough for now, and it adds up in time. Like I said, it's incremental progress. So we talked about all of those things in the context of orienting towards peace, and um, this, I would say, is a good guideline for managing conflicts with others. Once we learn to manage conflicts in ourselves, managing conflicts with others, in my opinion, becomes a lot easier. Because just like we have those dark traits, so does the other, and we can understand it a little bit better and learn to talk a little bit wiser and negotiate a little bit wiser. So, yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about today. And thanks very much for taking the time to listen to all of this. In the next video, we're going to be talking about taking care of ourselves, or being responsible to take care of ourselves like we're someone that we actually care for. And this, of course, may sound familiar to some of you. It's borrowed from Jordan Peterson's Principles, Rules for Life, right? And we're going to get into that a little bit more in the next video. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.